Hello YouTube, this is Chris from Paranormal Services. In today's video, we're going to go over some more information about UFOs, aliens. They are real. They can be killed. Um, some are testimonies from credible witnesses, and I'm going to show you other incidences that's happened. I keep telling people that the Battle of LA is a real thing. The This is what I'm telling you guys. They put the truth right out in fiction or science fiction, in movies, TV shows, so on and so on. That movie Battle of LA, yes, dramatized, but it was based on actual events. And when I tell people that, they laugh. They think it's funny. Um, People know the Roswell 1947 Roswell crash, and I've actually found a document that uh, an Air Force said that he's seen the dead alien bodies and the crashed UFOs. There was three of them, supposedly. And then there's a military uh, mortuary guy who had a contract with the military. And I'm not going to play all the videos, the few that I've got here. And this is nowhere near the information that I have. I'm going to play bits and pieces of them. I'm going to put all these links in the description. Please go check them out fully. I've spent all morning getting this information all together for you. So here we go. I'm going to get into this here. Now remember, I've been telling you guys, whistleblowers and credible witnesses and stuff like that, and you're like, a lot of you are like, which whistleblowers? Who are they? What clearance? This and that. And this is just partial information that I have. I've been researching this field for a long, long time. Um, I'm going through and refining all this stuff to add into the different lists that I have and to make videos on some of them. So anyway, this case here is on the UFOs over the White House, which is a very, very, very famous photo and video. And you got to keep in mind it's a heavily restricted fly zone. That's them there. It's a very heavily restricted fly zone. So anyway, go ahead and listen to this little section here.
The mass UFO sightings occurred in 1952 over Washington, D.C. Started on a Saturday evening just after sunset when an off-duty Army officer and FBI agent that happened to be neighbors witnessed a red cigar-shaped object sail slowly over their suburban homes towards the city. Shortly after, air traffic controllers at Washington National Airport were stunned to see 7 unidentified flying objects appear on their radar screens. They are moving in deliberate formations and spreading out over all sectors of the city, including the White House, the U.S. Capitol Building, and Andrews Air Force Base, which also reported radar contact and visual confirmation of, quote, an object which appeared to be like an orange ball of fire, trailing a tail unlike anything I had ever seen before, unquote. Similar reports flooded in from airline pilots in the area, along with radar operators at the secondary air traffic control tower. By sunrise, the UFOs had vanished, and the news spread throughout the world. Then, 1 week later, they reappeared again.
All right, so that's all I'm going to play of that video. Like I said, I'm going to put all these links in the description below. Hopefully YouTube doesn't hit me for the music being in the background. As you see, I'm not playing much of the videos, but I do want you guys to go check out these links. I'm going to put the links, and I also, if you see, I've got them in lists, like this one here, UFO aliens list. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. So I try to keep this as short as possible. This is an actual video of the UFOs flying over the White House. Check it out. See the date? 12th, 1952. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. These, if you just look up UFO over the White House, it's a very, very well-known photo, and sadly, a lot of people don't know of this photo. I've asked people if they've seen it in all different regions, all different nations within the U.S., and they're like, I've never seen a picture of the and I show them and they're like, wow, I never knew that. So anyway, keep in mind all these dates too. This is the Battle of LA. This is the actual pictures of the Battle of LA. This is militarytimes.com. I'm gonna, like I said, suggest you go read all these in entirety. One might assume the official account of the incident would lay these theories to rest. One would be wrong. The Navy declared the entire matter a false alarm. Yeah, that's not surprising. But a day later, the War Department presenting the Army side of the story claimed at least one or possible five identified aircraft were over the city that night. Um, then if you go down here and you look, it says, to be honest with you, I love the film in 1941, said Nelson, who expects his book to be out later this year. No, now the soldiers I interview, they're not too thrilled with it because it makes them look stupid. Because Steven Spielberg made this mock-up movie of the Battle of LA, trying to pretty much discredit it. And the military people that were there at the time said, whoa, 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 no, this makes us look stupid. This event actually happened. You honestly think that we couldn't bring down a weather balloon? See, look at the beginning of the article. Um, This says history buffs that despite the firing of 1,400 anti-aircraft rounds into the dark skies above Los Angeles in the early hours of February 25th, 1942, the city was not under Japanese attack. That's a lot of anti-aircraft rounds, and they could not bring this down. And look how it looks like a disc. It looks like a UFO, and then you get all these little ones around it. Okay. Now, I looked up the aircraft around that time, and here's the same website, militaryfactory.com, and it says there was 63 total of 63 World War II aircraft in 1942 in the military factory. These are the list of the aircraft with the respected flags next to who owned the airplanes. Okay, now if you look, none of these airplanes, except for a couple of them, could even resemble something that we wouldn't have recognized. But then you got to remember Foo Fighters. Look that up as well. Foo Fighters were the ball of lights that our soldiers were seeing, and they were reddish in color and white in color, and they were faster and they could maneuver in ways that our aircraft could not. And they were just all over the place. They would show up, they would disappear, and we could not explain them. We called them Foo Fighters. Okay, now the only two that I found that resemble anything that may have been mistaken as maybe a possible UFO was this here, which they call the Flying Pancake, which was made in 1942. But look how big those propellers are. Okay, keep that in mind because, like in the picture, you see it looks like a complete disc. You do not see any propellers whatsoever. Okay, none. And then you got the flying wing here, but you see the propellers in the back. All right. Now, I'm going to play you some audio recordings as well of official reports. And then the news, it was 65th year anniversary was coming up of the Battle of LA, and they had it all over the news. I remember seeing it on the news as well. But there's no way you can mistake this and this as a weather balloon or a UFO, especially to train military personnel. I even found a document, and some of these people were not just trained like foot soldiers, but there was also ones that were good with radar. They were trained military radar experts and different things like that, and they could not identify these objects. The speed they were going, the shape they were, everything. They could not identify them. So let's go ahead. I'll go to the next one here. Okay, this is the Battle of Los Angeles on MSNBC. The 65th anniversary of that was coming up at the time.
February 25th marks an anniversary that few remember and some refuse to forget. In 1942, an unidentified object was seen hovering over the California coast.
Now keep that in mind. Also, a lot of skeptics are saying, "Oh, they were," even on that one website that I told you to check out, that gave the story of, on the military web, the military.com one. Anyway, they're touched up pictures. They're touched up pictures. That's what they are. Well, as you see here, this is not a picture. This is actual video that was taken.
The military, poised to defend the coast from a foreign invasion, took aim and fired. The event, called the Battle of Los Angeles, made headlines. What was in the sky and where did it go? Filmmaker and UFO researcher Jose Escamilla highlights the events of that night.
What happened at 2 in the morning, some objects entered into our airspace. One of them hovered right over Santa Monica and Culver City. Some described it as a round, dome-shaped object that was about 100 feet diameter. Some of them said it was a little smaller. But the unique thing about it is the military, the Army started firing about it is the military. The unique thing about it is some of them said it was a little.
Look at that. You can clearly see the disc there. You got other ones here that are a shape of a disc as well, and you can see a dark center inside.
Smaller. But the unique thing about it is the military, the Army started firing at this thing for about an hour, hour and a half, but they could not bring the object down.
Within 24 hours, the Department of War sent a memo to the president detailing the incident as possibly unidentified airplanes flying at various speeds and declaring the investigation ongoing. But that came to an abrupt end when the Army declared the flying object a weather balloon, sparking theories of a government cover-up.
If they can't bring down a weather balloon with over 1,500 rounds of anti-aircraft shrapnel, 12-pound weaponry, what are they going to do against a real enemy target? That's what they decided. What do? Do we tell the American and the world public there is something among us that we cannot bring down, we cannot control, we don't know where they're from, and we don't know what they're doing here? No, they didn't want to say that. So the next best thing to do was to just officially deny their existence. That's when the first official denial on UFOs started.
We're speaking about UFO with small u, small f, small o.
And this guy is just trying to discredit UFOs. You can go watch that at the end when you go watch the links. Here's the actual audio of the news report that night when it happened. Check it out.
News of the World, Wednesday, February 25th. Once again, Columbia's correspondents in world capitals and in the fighting zones in the Western Pacific are ready to give you the latest news direct by shortwave radio.
And now for news of our own West Coast, we take you to Los Angeles and the report of Byron Palmer.
Anti-aircraft guns went into action against unidentified aircraft in the Los Angeles area shortly after 3 a.m. Pacific wartime this morning. The anti-aircraft guns began barking during a blackout ordered by the 4th Interceptor Command at 2:25 a.m. The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach. Army officials declined to comment on the possibility that the object might have been a blimp. However, it required nearly 30 minutes to travel some 25 miles, far slower than an airplane. Watchers on the rooftop of the Columbia Broadcasting Building in the heart of Hollywood could plainly see the flashes of guns and searchlights sweeping the skies in a...
Look how it's glowing. That's not a weather balloon. That's not a blimp. That's not an airplane. Look how that damn thing's glowing. I mean, come on. Anyway, go watch the rest of that video. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible, and I'm not trying to steal people's videos. I just want to give you an idea of what's going on. Go check these videos out and watch them in their entirety. I have, like I said. Then you got the Roswell incident in 1947, which that's a very, very popular case. But again, the Battle of LA happened before Roswell. Okay, and then the article I'm going to show you was there's also an article that I found on CIA dump files. No, actually, it was actually the FBI vault, and where the Air Force said that he had seen them, and then there's you'll see. Um, this is where the Air Force request declassified CIA material on unidentified flying objects. This is a very, very long read. Um, it took me, I want to say, about 30 minutes to read it. Very, very long read. But I'm going to point out about the small part here. As you see, it's the same document. In 1944, there was material evidence of the existence of hardware obtained from crashed vehicles in Sweden. So this was in 44. Um, excuse me. In Sweden. This evidence gave the investigating team a basis upon which to operate. The absence of any hardware resulting from unexplained UFO sightings lends a will of the wish natural nature to the problem. The result of an investigation to date strongly indicates that no evidence of hostile act or danger exists. Furthermore, the current reporting system would have little value in the case of detection of the enemy attack by conventional aircraft or guided missiles. Under such conditions, hardware would be available almost at once. Aircraft and of extraterrestrial origin came talk. In the interest of to note that none of the members of the panel were loath to accept that this Earth might be visited by extraterrestrial intelligence, being of the same of some sort someday. What they did not find was any evidence that related to the object cited to space travelers. One of the panel members in the presentation showed how he eliminated each of the known probable causes of the sightings, leaving him extraterrestrial as the only remaining in many cases. His background as an astronautical engineer and technical intelligence officer could not be slighted. However, the panel cannot accept any of the case cited by him because they were raw, unevaluated reports. Terrestrial explanations of the sightings were suggested in some cases, and others the time of sightings was so short as to cause suspicion of the visual impression. It was noted by others of the panel members that extraterrestrial aircraft artifacts, if they did exist, were no cause for alarm. Rather, they were in the realm of natural phenomena. How would they be in the realm of natural phenomena? Come on. These are extraterrestrial things. They would not be natural phenomena. That's just them trying to cover it up. Subject of scientific study, just as cosmic rays were at the time of their discovery 20 to 30 years ago. This was an attitude in which another of the panel members did not concur, as he felt not only the great concern, immediate and great concern to the U.S., but all countries, nothing like a common threat to unite its people. Remember Reagan making something similar to that in his UFO speeches? Come on. It was noted that the present astronomical knowledge of the solar system makes the existence of intelligent beings as we know them, as we know the term elsewhere than on Earth, extremely unlikely. Again, that's just them trying to cover it up. And the consideration of their attention by the controllable means could find to any of the content of the Earth quite preposterous. Okay. Anyway, it's a very, very long read. I do recommend you go reading it. But what it is, it's pretty much the Air Force trying to say, hey, we want you to CIA, we want you to disclassify UFOs, and that you know what they are, you know aliens exist, and you know that this technology is real and it is not ours. And it's a long read. Like I said, I do recommend you go reading it. Anyway, remember this book, The Day After Roswell, because it gets mentioned in one of the videos that I'm going to play. It was written by The Day After Roswell is an American book about extraterrestrial spacecraft and the Roswell UFO incident. It was written by the United States Army Colonel Philip J. Corso. Okay? Remember this book. Now, to me, this is a smoking gun right here that aliens exist, UFOs exist, and that aliens can be killed. This is on the FBI vault that I talked about in, I believe, my last video. Okay? Office Memorandum, United States Government, Director FBI, guy, the Guy Huddle, this is what they call the Guy Huddle incident. Flying saucer, let's see here. The following information was furnished to the U.S., and they got it blocked out. An investigator for the Air Force stated that 3 so-called flying saucers had been recovered in New Mexico. They were described as being similar in shape with raised centers. Now, remember what you saw? The kind of looked like a dome in the cross lights of the Battle of L.A. All right. With apparently, let's see here, described as being similar in shape with raised centers, apparently 50 feet in diameter. Each one was occupied by 3 bodies of human shape. Well, the grays look like humans. They're human shape, but only 3 feet tall, dressed in metallic clothes of a very fine texture. Each body was, let's see here, bandaged in a manner similar to that, to the blackout surface by speed flyers and test pilots. According to the information, the sources were found in New Mexico due to the fact that the government was very highly powered radar set up in that area, and it is believed that radar interference with the controlling, let's see here, mechanisms of the saucers. No further evaluation attempted. Okay, now look at this. This is the most popular file in the FBI vault. Our high-tech electronic reading room, housing various bureau records released under the Freedom of Information Act over the past 2 years. The file has been viewed nearly 1 million times, yet it is only a single page, relaying a unconfirmed report that the FBI never followed up on. See, they never followed up on it. This file is a memo dated March 22nd, 1950, 63 years ago, last week. It was authored by Guy Huddle, then head of our field office in Washington, D.C. See sidebar below to brief by, let's see here. Like all memos to the FBI headquarters at that time, it was addressed to Director J. Edgar Hoover, and record and index of the FBI records. The subject memo was anything but ordinary. It related to a story of one agent by a third party who said an Air Force investigator had reported 3 flying saucers was recovered in New Mexico. The memo provides the following detail. The saucers, were described as being circular in shape and raised center approximately 50 feet in diameter. Each one was accompanied by 3 bodies of human shape, but only 3 feet tall, dressed in metallic clothes of very fine texture. Each body was bandaged in a manner similar to the blackout suits used by speed flyers and test pilots. After relaying the information that claims that saucers had been found because the government's high-powered radar in the area had interfered with the controlling mechanisms of the saucer, the memo ends simply by saying that no further evaluations were attempted concerning the matter by the FBI agent. So this FBI agent was given this information, and according to this official report, he didn't investigate it. But there was 3 bodies that appeared to be human shape that were dead, pretty much. Okay? Okay, this is another one that I do recommend that you go check fully out. I'm going to play you just bits and pieces of it here. This is why I said remember the book. That one book.
Sometime, I guess. My interest in UFOs was not very great until 8 years ago. When I was Minister of Defense, of course, I got sighting reports, but I was too busy unifying the Canadian Armed Forces to be able to worry about them. So I wouldn't say I was a skeptic. I wasn't. I was an agnostic. I didn't know whether they were real or whether they weren't. But there was a young man in Ottawa whose name was Pierre Junot, and he started sending me things about the UFO file. One of the things he sent me one day was a book called The Day After Roswell, and I found it absolutely fascinating. While I was reading the book, my nephew said, "What are you reading?" I told him what it was, and he said, "Well, I'm a skeptic." A couple of days later, he phoned and said, I was talking to the general. The general, incidentally, was a former United States Air Force general that he had met in his aviation career. And I told him what you were reading, and he said, "Every word of it is true and more." I phoned the general. Before I could even say hello and how are you, he said, "Every word is true and more." And he said that there had, in fact, been face-to-face meetings between United States officials and extraterrestrials from other star systems. And with that assurance, I decided to go public and say, for the first time, of anyone of cabinet rank from the G8 group of countries, that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over your head, and said it without any restriction whatsoever. As soon as the wire systems had got the story out, information started coming in. Dozens of emails with personal experiences of how people have seen vehicles flying over their homes, and in some cases how they've been abducted. And I got these things from many places, including a lot of other countries. I would not attempt to say how many terrestrials are living on Earth at the present time. I have reports of several species that are here and have bases here. There's one species that looks something like a praying mantis. And then the short grays are the ones that you see in the cartoons. The tall grays look much different. They look more like humans. And
So anyway, I do recommend you go watch that video in entirety. There's one part where he speaks of that him and his wife had been outside, and they noticed where it appeared to be a star, and it was really bright. And then all of a sudden, it moved really fast, and it just sit there, and then, like I said, moved really fast in a weird direction. And I've told people this story before. I've had a similar encounter, several similar encounters, but one of them I just got through doing a paranormal investigation, a ghost hunt at a client's house, and I was on the phone with her in the middle of the night, and I was talking to her about the evidence that I'd caught, and there was 3 stars, what appeared to be stars, in the sky. They weren't moving. They were flashing similar to stars. They were just sitting there. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they started flying. About 30 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden, they just started kind of flying away from each other in opposite directions. Had I not been sitting there staring at it for 30 minutes, something told me I had this feeling to look, just keep watching. And I kept watching, and then about 30 minutes later, they start flying away from each other. And so that's why I tell people everything. I believe that the stars are real, and I believe God created the stars. But I also believe that not everything that looks like stars or anything else is exactly what it looks like, because of incidences like that and people, credible witnesses, having the same experiences, either before, during, or after I have some of these similar experiences. You don't have to believe any of this, but so we're going to get on to the next video here. This is the Roswell mortician that I was telling you about. He had clearance at this particular time, but he did have he had the contract for the being the mortuary mortician. I'm sorry, for military personnel. Okay. Now listen to his claims. One, it says that aliens can be killed. Two, it shows the aliens and UFOs of Roswell. We're not weather balloons. They were not anything else of that nature. They were extraterrestrial in nature. They were aliens, and they were alien technology spaceships or UFOs. They weren't built by us.
Field. And this gentleman called and said he was a mortuary officer at the base. He needed some information. And I said, what do you need? And he said, how many hermetically sealed infant caskets do you have, 3.5, 4 foot in stock? And I said, we don't have any. How long would it take you to get?
Okay, now that's important to remember, because remember that document that Air Force personnel said that they were 3 and 4 foot in height. And in the other whistleblower, the one I just played part of the video on, he was saying the same thing. You know, the 3, 4 foot, tall grays. You see what I'm saying? All these numbers match up. These are all credible witnesses. Matter of fact, part of the video, he even says that he didn't come out with this information at the time because he didn't want to make his family look bad. He didn't want to dishonor his dad. He looked up to his dad, and he didn't want to dishonor his dad by talking about this kind of stuff. Okay? These people, on top of everybody else that I've ever seen, ever heard, ever talked to, they're all, they don't talk about this stuff because they don't want them, they got so much to lose. And, careers and their lives and their families' careers and their families' lives and stuff of that nature. So anyway, just keep listening.
Get them. And I said, well, I can call Amarillo by 3:30 this afternoon and have them in here in the morning. I said, what's going on? He said, that's not important. I said, well, it is important also, but anyway. Then I hung up. And then he called back later and he said, I need more information. And you want to know what embalming chemicals that would alter the tissue, the stomach contents, and what is our preparation for taking care of bodies that are laying out in the elements for several days. And I said, you're the mortuary officer and you're asking me because I do it your way, I was trying to find out who I was talking.
Now keep in mind too, they're 3 and 4 foot tall. So these couldn't have been human test pilots unless they were children, or they could have been midgets. But unless they were one of those two, these bodies, 3 or 4 foot tall, could not have been human test pilots. They couldn't have been. It just don't make any sense.
But there again, I was very stupid and I hung up again. And so, but anyway, later on in the day, I got an emergency. We had the only ambulance business in Roswell at that time. And this airman was riding an old Indian motorcycle. And
Did you notice he used the word Roswell? So this has to do with the Roswell crash. Okay? I'm going to see if I can skip ahead and see if I can find where he's describing the bodies.
20 or 30 minutes at the most. And all their eyes, and it started, so they'd take a forceps and turn a hand. The reason that she started out the door, and then they said, Lieutenant, we still have to have some help. And this is what you're going to do. And they wanted her. And so they'd take a forceps and turn a hand. She'd say 4 fragile fingers, so many centimeters, and all this kind of stuff. And she said she wasn't in there over 20 or 30.
Now, what the part of the video I skipped, that's why I recommend you go watch these videos and look at these documents, is because he was the MPs, the military got in the MPs, and they said, get this man off the base. He doesn't belong here. Well, he has a contract to be a mortician for them. He was asked to come, and now they're telling him to leave. And this nurse that he's speaking of had gotten, she said, hey, you guys, you need help. It'll make more sense when you go watch the whole video. And so she's going to give her explanation of what's going on. Now, if listen to him, he says when they're dead, they're autopsying them, the bodies, they're dead. And they start putting out these fumes and stuff, and it's burning their eyes and everything else. And she gives an exact description of a gray. when she tells him what they look like.
3 minutes at the most. And all their eyes and it started burning in their skin. They were feeling it was getting real warm and real hot. So that's when they just immediately, they had no idea what they had. The two pathologists said there wasn't anything in the anatomy books, there wasn't anything in what our medical schools. They had never seen anything like this.
It wasn't in their anatomy books. Nothing they were taught in school. They had never seen any bodies look like this. Again, it can't be human.
And that's immediately after that they were put in these pouches, put in a hermetically sealed container and flown directly to Wright-Patterson.
And she actually described for you what they look like.
Yeah, when the MPs were taking me out down the hall, that's when she came out of the supply room with this towel over her face, and that's when she screamed, "Glenn, get out of here as fast as you can." And I met her I kept calling, and I met her the next morning at the officers club in a conference room, and that's when she gave me a little diagram of what they were going on, what they look like. And it looks like what you see today, most of the little diagrams, you know, the 4 fragile fingers and the long arm, real short joint, the large eyes. She said the heads were almost completely demolished, but they could see. They only had 2 orifices. They didn't have earlobes. They had 2 ear canals. The mouth was only about 1 inch. And that's the way she described it to me. And I was with her till about 11:30 that day, and then at 3:30 that afternoon, her supervisor called and said, "Your friend just been transferred out." And I had her serial number and everything else, but I never have found her to this day. I've never made contact with her. So I think the best thing they did, she was going to join a convent, and I'd imagine they discharged her and let her go. It's a good place to keep somebody quiet. And he came up to me, and he was punching me on the shoulder, just lightly. I mean, he wasn't rough or anything. And he just said, "Look, mister, you don't go in and start any rumors in Roswell. Nothing happened out here." And he said, "If you do, you know, it'd be real serious problems." And so I just, being as my character was at that time, I said, "I'm a civilian, you can go to hell." And that's where he said, "You may be the one going to hell." And then that's when he really told me, he said, "Somebody will be picking your bones out of the sand if you do that." So it didn't look like a plane crash.
See, they were threatening him. First they were like, "Hey, don't say nothing. Nothing happened here. Blah blah blah." Then they're like, "All right, well," when he tells him you can go to hell, he's a civilian. You don't have control over me. They pretty much say, "Hey," they're telling him, "Hey, if you say anything, we're gonna be picking you out of the sand." Okay, now listen right here. He's gonna give a description of the craft that he's seen. All right. So, and he just said it didn't look like a plane crash. We rewind it just a little bit.
And if you do that, so it didn't look like a plane crash. It didn't look like aluminum or you burn aluminum, because I've seen a lot of that in stainless steel. But what it looked like, of course, it didn't have any in those days. What it looked like more, it was a real light gray, almost a white. And some of it was a real dark gray, but it looked more like what fiberglass might look like today. And it wasn't dent or anything, and there wasn't any dents, but what it was is in pieces looked like it'd been twisted and shredded and all this kind of stuff. But I didn't see any real sharp dents. Of course, I didn't stand there and look at it either, you know. It's just what I noticed on the way going out. But I know it was very thin. I could see that it was very, very thin. I didn't want to embarrass my family for the first place. Next thing, being in the mortuary business is not an easy business. And I didn't want to embarrass the funeral home. I didn't want to embarrass, my father was an old contractor, and I didn't want to embarrass him, because if I'd have come out and it was an alien, you know, and all this back in those days, hell, they would have laughed me out of town. My folks knew. I thought it would be very embarrassing. And I didn't want it. Mainly, I idolized my father, and I didn't want to embarrass him, because he and I was very, very close. And I was told, one of those sergeants out there said, "Well, let him go. Hell, nobody's going to believe him anyway. Nobody's going to believe this anyway." So, but that didn't have anything to do with it. It was my family that I wanted to protect.
All right, so there you go. There's one credible witness um, that says UFOs are real. There was a crash in Roswell. There was bodies in Roswell. They were alien of descent. They weren't human, so they can be killed. So again, they're not demons. Um, and the medical personnel at that time, they're like, we've never seen this anatomy. It's not in any of our books. We don't know what this is. That's extraterrestrial, people. So anyway, hopefully I don't have to fight YouTube on keeping this up because of the little bit of music that's been being played in the background, because it's not my fault. And I'm giving credits to these people, and I'm only playing bits and pieces. Here's another credible witness. Deputy Sheriff Charles Forgus recalls Roswell UFO crash and alien bodies.
And hauling the beings out of the creek to haul them away. And they look, what I've seen them look just like the one you see on television, them huge cotton-picking eyes. It's like them. And that round thing is down there in the canyon. And it was a big round thing, about 100 feet across in the middle, looked like. They put all that on trucks and hauled it away. They didn't let you get very close to them either. And the sheriff, we didn't stay just a little bit till we got the prisoner and headed back to Big Spring.
So you were on your way from Big Spring into Roswell to pick a prisoner up?
Yeah.
And you just happened to be at the place when
it already had crashed.
It had already crashed.
Yeah, they were there taking them out and everything, and they was soldiers there, but God, I don't know how many there, but there must have been.
All right, so we'll go to the next one. Okay, that is the. I'm going to put this link in the description. This is the list I got called UFOs Aliens. Some are my videos of UFOs that I've caught. Some are not. Some are videos like you were just saying, as you see, they're in here. Get back down here to the bottom. So you got the believer, you got the FBI, you got Deputy Sheriff, that's the one you were just watching, Roswell Mortician, all kinds of different things. So anyway, hopefully this video wasn't too long, and you guys stay to the end. Rate, comment, subscribe, guys. Use all my links in the About Me section. And if you happen to be a whistleblower and you've got credible proof of UFOs and aliens, I would love to do an interview with you. It could be over Skype. It could be over. It can meet you in person if you happen to live local, or if you can travel, and you want to meet me somewhere. I don't have the abilities to travel very far right now, but I would love to. But anyway, if you can, let me know. You can private message me if you want to. We don't have to show your face. If we can use Google Hangouts if you like. If you want, and with that you can hide your face. You can turn your camera off, so it's just your audio. But if you want to have me interview you, private message me your information and we'll talk. And once I can prove that you're a credible whistleblower and you've got credible proof, then we'll go from there. Anyway, guys, thanks for everything. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.